They came with fire in their hands and banners stitched by caliphs, surrounding the cliffs of Sanam fortress, expecting to find a madman, but what they feared was a mirror. The last stronghold of the veiled prophet stood silent. No cries, no banners, just the echo of a man who had once turned philosophy into revolution. Before the veil, he was no one. Atta ibn Qais, a cloth dyer from the eastern steppes of Khorasan, born disfigured, nameless in the chronicles of men, faceless to the world. But history, like fire, spreads from small sparks. He began not as a prophet, but as a man tired of being invisible. They mocked his veil, thinking it was shame, but he turned it into a symbol more powerful than any crown. As the Abbasid Caliphate stretched its tendrils into Persia, grinding the old Zoroastrian world into dust and replacing fire with decree, Atta's voice rose, not with blades, but with scripture of his own making. He declared that light itself had passed through many vessels: Adam, Zoroaster, Jesus, Muhammad, and now through him. He wasn't merely chosen, he was the next illumination. His words were strange yet seductive, wrapped in mysticism and rebellion. But it wasn't just poetry, it was strategy. In a land broken by overtaxation, crushed belief systems, and fractured tribes, Al-Muqanna, the Veiled One, promised not just paradise, but vengeance wrapped in silk. He mastered optics, illusions, and celestial mathematics, blending science with divine spectacle. In candlelit chambers, he demonstrated reflections and fire tricks to astonished villagers. Some say he made the moon disappear. Others say he bled stars. But his greatest illusion was unity. He brought together Persians who missed the old gods, Arabs who hated their caliphs, and peasants who had no god at all. His army swelled, not with elite warriors, but with zealots, heretics, women, escaped slaves, failed generals, and forgotten fire priests. They didn't fight for territory, they fought to erase an empire. The Abbasids mocked him, called him a magician, a heretic, a fraud. But they kept losing ground. Fortress after fortress in northeastern Persia fell. Al-Muqanna's banners, white and blinding, flew across the sky like avenging angels. His court, unlike Baghdad's gold-crusted palaces, was a sanctuary of books, oaths, and fanatic discipline. He declared himself the final incarnation of divine light, equal to the prophets, successor to Zoroaster and Muhammad alike. His soldiers stopped fearing death. Women in white armor rode beside men, chanting his verses. His word spread faster than the Abbasid spies could burn it. But every rebellion has a reckoning. As he grew more powerful, his illusions had to grow grander. He isolated himself, refused to be seen even by his closest followers, claimed that no mortal could bear his unveiled face. Some believed him divine, others feared he had gone mad. But belief, once ignited, does not ask for sanity. Then came the siege. The Caliph al-Mahdi, humiliated and enraged, sent a final army, tens of thousands, black-cloaked and ruthless, to Sanam. For months, Al-Muqanna's mountain fortress resisted. No food, no water, no aid. He fed his followers poetry while the empire catapulted stones and plague into their homes. But he would not surrender. As his generals fell and his people starved, he remained in his chamber, veiled, writing until the end. When the outer walls finally crumbled, Al-Muqanna chose his final illusion. He gathered his wives, his remaining guards, and his closest disciples, and drank poison. Then he burned his body in a hidden chamber, leaving only ashes and veil. The Abbasids never found a corpse. And in that absence, myth was born. They paraded his veil in Baghdad as proof of his death, but whispers said he had become light itself, ascending beyond flesh. In the following years, his symbols appeared carved into hidden caves, etched into old fire temples, passed from rebel to rebel. Though his army had vanished, his legend endured. Mothers would hush crying children with warnings, "The Veiled One sees." Scholars debated whether he was prophet or charlatan. But somewhere between science and sorcery, between rebellion and madness, Al-Muqanna rewrote the rules of power. He showed the world that belief can be conjured, that truth is sometimes less important than conviction. And in doing so, he terrified an empire. His story wasn't written by victors. It survived because it couldn't be erased. And now, centuries later, when we look at the great prophets and emperors, at warriors and saints, we rarely remember the ones who didn't want a throne, but challenged the right to rule at all. The veiled prophet wore no crown, but for a moment he blinded the world with the brilliance of a man who believed he was light. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to burn his name into history. If you believe stories like his deserve to be remembered, not just for what they were, but for what they dared to question, then subscribe, because this is Teduent, where we bring the forgotten back to fire.